Bexar County has the highest number of domestic violence-related deaths in Texas, but a new plan aims to change that. Today, city, county, and state leaders revealed a response to the epidemic. They're calling it a first-of-its-kind commission. Eyewitness News reporter Savannah Louie explains what it is and why leaders think it will work.
In a sea of purple, a beacon shines bright.
I feel hopeful.
That light for domestic violence survivor Joanna Rodriguez comes from an announcement.
Our system has failed the victims of domestic violence in our community, but we are all standing here together in unison because we refuse to accept that.
Law enforcement, prosecution, and judiciary leaders, nonprofits, and local healthcare agencies are forming a collaborative commission to tackle domestic violence in the area.
Family violence-related homicides are actually up dramatically. And I think most notable among those this year has been the Andreen McDonald case.
Bexar County has the highest amount of domestic violence-related deaths in Texas. In a special order signed by Judge Peter Sakai, the first-of-its-kind commission was formed last month.
And what makes this different is that instead of each level of government saying, I have an idea, let's try it, we're going to work together. 5
committees will spend 3 years targeting specific problems like communication between and within court systems.
One example, the issue of individuals who are in the possession of dangerous weapons who have already been court-ordered to not possess them, and how we can safely and properly remove those weapons from those individuals.
As leaders navigate the issues, they're hoping any solutions they find will help those in the dark.
The Army that's going to be helping them is on its way.
Savannah Louie, KENS 5 Eyewitness News.